What is going on, folks? Hope everybody's doing well this Tuesday afternoon. A lot of things going on in the world today, guys. A lot of things. But don't be dismayed about it, folks. These things must come. We know that. We find that all throughout the New Testament, especially in Revelation, you just see these things. As Colossians 2:16 we'll be talking about are a shadow of things to come in the Messiah. Indeed they are. Folks, I want to continue on doing a video that's more YouTube appropriate about Colossians 2:16. I've already hit up Acts 10 on old videos, also with Acts 15, that whole subject, and just kind of move along and get back on the vaccine, which is what I was really focusing on. But Colossians 2:16 I never finished up, so let's just jump in, folks. This one's going to be, again, more for YouTube. I've already done that for Facebook, but this is going to be for YouTube. Like Yahweh, not in a car anymore. So give him all the glory on that, folks. With that being said and done, let's jump in. This one addressing sheepdog ministries. Interesting character. And I was a Messianic for 20 years. I was drilled very well at the age of 5 by some of the best. I'm well aware of the Messianic position. I'm no longer Messianic. I don't consider myself a Christian either, but a member of the body of the Messiah, baptized with the Holy Spirit, with the laying on of hands, all that stuff that is required. But I don't identify as Messianic or Christian. So this is in the hopes that it will help a lot of my, as I call them, the way the Jews were for Paul, the same thing as my beloved Messianics. They're very dear to my heart. They still are. Yes, I'm probably an outcast to most of them, but I understand. With all that being said, but in my heart, they are still dear to me. They're my youth. I was very zealous. I said that in past videos, but hopefully this will get through. But usually pride kicks in. That's the sad part about it. So let's go ahead and jump in, folks, and get started with Sheepdog, who I did address. I don't know what happened. First, just go ahead and just go over to YouTube and see what we're talking about. Let's go ahead and give him an opportunity. It's about 3 minutes of time where he's going to address why you are wrong, why I am wrong on our interpretation of Colossians 2:16 and 17, which is very much something that it's a common theme, and the Messianics will go very quickly to the word context, a word that I just don't feel, because I was just like Sheepdog in my youth. I was taking down Christian ministers left and right. The reality is, folks, it's walking right into what Paul is saying, because like I showed in the last video, contextualism is a philosophy of men right off the bat. In other words, it is pretty much Satan, the adversary, taking us away from the wisdom that we speak in a mystery and going straight into the philosophy of men. And I'll show that again, but give him the opportunity to go ahead and speak on Colossians 2:16 through 17. Again, from Sheepdog Ministries.
Colossians 2:16 through 17 is often used as a proof text against people that keep the Torah, to say that we don't have to keep the dietary laws or the feast days or the Sabbaths. However, when taught in context, Colossians 2:16 through 17 actually supports the observance of Torah. Colossians 2, therefore let no one pass judgment on you in questions of food and drink, or with regard to a festival or a new moon or a Sabbath. These are a shadow of things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. First of all, let's do a little history lesson on Colossae. Colossae is in modern-day Turkey. Colossae is right here, and way over here in the green is Israel. I want you to take note how far away Colossae is from Israel. There are no planes, trains, or cars. Colossae is a Gentile nation with no Jewish influence. So think about the words spoken in Colossians 2. They were not in the heart of Israel. Who would be judging them for not keeping the dietary laws, or not keeping the festivals, or not keeping the new moons or Sabbaths? These people did not grow up doing any of these things. They didn't grow up with the dietary laws. They didn't grow up with new moons or Sabbaths or festivals. there would be nobody to judge them. In fact, when taught in context, it's the exact opposite. These people were coming out of pagan religions, starting to keep the Sabbath, starting to keep the dietary laws, starting to keep the feast days. And they were being judged for doing that. Just like when Sabbath keepers start keeping the dietary laws and start keeping the feast days of God and the Sabbaths. They were coming out of the world. They were coming out of that pagan religion, that pagan way of living, in favor of living a life for God, and they were being judged for it. And when Paul says these are a shadow of the things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ, he is 1,000,000,000% correct. The Sabbath is a foreshadow of Christ's millennial reign. The Sabbath is the 7th day, and Christ's millennial reign is the 7,000th year, and it's going to be a time of peace and rest, just like the Sabbath is supposed to symbolize. And every single feast day tells the story of Jesus. The gospel is in all the feast days of Leviticus 23. If you're curious about that, I have a few videos about it in my Sabbath and Holidays playlist. When you actually study the context and the culture of Colossae at the time that this was written, there's absolutely no way you can use these words in opposition to Torah observance. Paul was 100% speaking to Torah keepers. And Paul 100% kept the laws himself. I have an entire playlist that proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Paul actually taught the Torah and was in favor of keeping the laws.
There you have it, guys. Again, from Sheepdog Ministries. I'm going to go ahead and break that down, but I wanted to give him the opportunity to speak the 3 minutes that you heard that he has to say. Now we're going to go ahead and chop it down and show why it is false doctrine. It is. And as Paul says, shun profane babbling, because it's going to lead further into lawlessness and spread like gangrene. That's exactly what I'm trying to do, folks. Again, hopefully it's for the best, but let's go ahead and go back to and break this down.
Colossians 2:16 through 17 is often used as a proof text against people that keep the Torah, to say that we don't have to keep the dietary laws or the feast days or the Sabbaths. However,
now I will say one thing: I don't think it's right for anybody to go and to judge Messianics and say, hey, you're wrong because you keep the Sabbath, you're wrong because you're keeping the feast days, you're wrong because you're keeping kosher. I don't think that's appropriate. I think that's exactly the way I was judging them. But the truth is, folks, and remember, I was a Messianic for 20 years, it's usually coming the other way around. It's Messianics that are on the offensive. I know, I was a Messianic for 20 years. In other words, that's why I put these parables. That countermeasure just isn't going to work against me. I'm well aware. These are usually what, remember the scriptures say, judge not lest you be judged. This is coming from the head, Yahshua Messiah. Okay, and that same measure you choose to judge, it will be measured to you. So what may appear to be Christians judging Messianics may be actually Christians finally getting a little bit of teeth. And I'm here to help. Even though I am not a Christian, there's still things there in false doctrine with, but I'm here to help. Whereas one time, like Paul, I can relate to Paul quite a bit, folks. I'm not afraid to say this. I was told to report to Paul's unit 2018. I'm not afraid to say that because that is true. But let's go ahead and just say that if you are judging the Messianics for doing that, folks, then, but if you are simply rebuttaling back, then the Messianic needs to learn to, if you're going to dish it out, then you got to be prepared to take it. And that's all Matthew 7. That's what the Messiah said. This is why Paul is imitating the Messiah.
When taught in context, Colossians 2:16 through 17 actually supports the observance of Torah.
And that's where he gets in trouble. Taught in context, like I said yesterday in the video that I put out just a day or two ago, folks, with Grace Messianic Ministry. Here's the problem. What is context? What do we mean by context? What does that mean? Because at face value, I think even Sheepdog will admit, it's pretty evident that Paul means what he says, and he does mean what he says. But when we pull the context card out, that word, contextualization or contextualism, the philosophy of contextualization, often called contextualism, emphasizes the importance of context in understanding, meaning, knowledge, and truth. It suggests that these concepts are not absolute, but depend on the specific circumstances surrounding them. In essence, contextualism argues that understanding something requires considering its surrounding environment, which can include factors like time, place, culture, and even the speaker's or author's intentions. It is a philosophy. Okay? Let's see if I could expound on this a little bit more. Contextualization is a philosophy. Yes, contextualism is considered a philosophical view or position. Here's why. It explains because of the core idea, the challenge to absolutism, the influence of various fields, etc., etc. It's going to break it down, folks. It is a philosophy. Yes. We live in a day and age, folks, of knowledge where we can look these things up very easily. Now, what is the problem with that? Well, let me see if I can pull up Colossians 2. This may be Colossians 2. I don't think it is, but let's just see. No, it will not be. That's sections I'm going to put up today, but let's go ahead and look up Colossians 2. Oh, I can get it on the screen for you guys. Colossians 2. I did this yesterday, folks. We'll come back to that in a minute. Colossians 2. Again, the last time I took it out of the KJV. Let's just take it out of the NIV this time. Get another witness. Okay, this is from the NIV, not the KJV, but the KJV says uses the same word. For the NIV, we find this. So you go over to verse 8. See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy. Okay? Hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the elemental spiritual forces of this world rather than the Messiah. There's that word, philosophy. Now, we could go to the KJV. The KJV version, again, just to get another witness on this. And we'll establish here, verse 8, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit. We got two witnesses. In fact, if we go, let's hit the ESV up, the English Standard Version. If we like, and we see in verse 8, see to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit. Now, why are we bringing up context? Why are we going context right now? Why is context even being brought into the equation when it clearly says, as you see from three witnesses, the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, are we using the Messiah or are we using the philosophy of men? This is what Paul is alluding to. This is what he's trying to get. This is what it's all about, hoping that some of us will catch this, and that's where we're at. Right off the bat, you're doing exactly what Paul is saying not to do. You're going to the vain philosophy of men by bringing contextualism into the picture. No, maybe Paul meant exactly what he said, and he did mean exactly what he said. Judge no man according to new moon, Sabbath, feast days, drink, meat, etc. That's exactly what he meant. Why go into contextualism? It is a philosophy. I just showed you flat out. It is a philosophy. That's strike number 1. That does not help to explain why a Christian is wrong.
Colossians 2, therefore let no one pass judgment on you in questions of food and drink, or with regard to a festival, or a new moon, or a Sabbath. These are a shadow of things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. First of all, let's do a little history lesson on Colossae. Colossae is in modern-day Turkey. Colossae is right here, and way over here in the green is Israel. I want you to take note how far away Colossae is from Israel. There are no planes.
Right here. According to Driving hours, if you were to drive from Colossae to Israel, driving time, 21 and a half hours. According to driving miles, 1,078 miles from Colossae to Israel. That is according to driving. All right, I drove CDL for 25 years. Yeah, that's 21 and a half hours. That's a long distance. Okay, notice what he's about to say though.
Planes, trains, or cars.
Let me just make sure I heard that correctly.
From Israel, there are no planes, trains, or cars.
That's correct. There are no planes, trains, and cars. Okay, from Colossae to Israel. They didn't exist at that time. But we're talking about, remember, most scholars put Paul's writing the brethren in Colossae roughly between 60 and 62 CE, about 30 years after the Messiah was impaled and raised from the dead and then ascends into heaven in Acts 1. About 30 years afterwards is when you got Paul. By this time, the Jerusalem Council has already taken place, the book of Galatians has already been written, etc., etc. So then why does it take Peter 10 years to go to the nations after he's told all authority has been given to me in Matthew 28 by the Master? Go. He waits 10 whole years. Now keep in mind, the earth is 197 million square miles. 57 million square miles of that, or roughly about a third of that, is land. That's 57 million square miles. And the Apostle Peter is waiting 10 years to not even leave Judea. Why is that, sheepdog? Because he's too focused on worshiping angels and Leviticus 11, that kosher diet. He is judging right off the bat meat and drink. This is why he is given that vision. Arise, Peter, kill and eat. Feed my sheep. Do you love me more than these? Yes. What defiles a man is not what goes into the mouth. That is not what defiles a man. It is what comes out of the mouth. Okay?
Colossae is a Gentile nation with no Jewish influence.
That is not, shame on you, sheepdog, for saying that. No, that is a lie. Josephus will tell you flat out the bat that is not true. Scholars are going to tell you that's not true, and let's go ahead and back this up. This is what's going to get you in trouble. Yes, there was a significant Jewish presence in Colossae during the first century. Remember, Paul wrote this in 60, 61, 62 CE. Historical records indicate that Antiochus III, which is true, relocated Jewish families to the area around 200 BCE. This is around 200 years before. By the way, this is Antiochus's father, Antiochus Epiphanes, that understand what you're talking about. By the first century, a considerable Jewish population, including synagogues, existed in Colossae. Okay, this was about 200. This is almost a quarter of a millennia. About 200 years, almost a quarter of a millennia before Paul is even writing Colossae. Give you an example, folks. It's been about 250 years since the American Revolution. So if the first Jewish presence if Antiochus III is relocating families in the area of Colossae, okay, the Lycus Valley, the whole area there, and we have proof of that. You can even see Josephus is going to make mention of that. Historical evidence. Josephus, a Jewish historian, mentions that Antiochus III transported 2,000 Jewish families from Babylon to Colossae to the surrounding area. The Jewish population records in 76 CE, which is roughly about 12 to 14 years after Paul writes Colossae, that 11,000 Jewish males lived in the district, with Colossae being the main city. Synagogues. The presence of synagogues in Colossae suggests a well-established Jewish community. Sheepdog, you're saying there is no Jewish influence. How can you say that, sir? That is incorrect. That is not even the context, if you're going to go context or contextualism, of what Paul is stating. We know that, folks. Again, that's like stating there is no English presence in America, even though we know that Englishmen came in 1776, and here we are in 2025, and yes, there's quite a bit of an English presence today. That is the same amount of time we're talking about here. No, sheepdog, that is not true. By the way, I'm not even hanging my hat on this point, but yes, there are plenty of people to judge and criticize why Gentiles are keeping the Sabbath, why they are eating kosher. This is the facts. Josephus supports it. The Jewish graveyards in the area from archaeology support it. The peer-reviewed scholarship confirms this, guys. Yes, it is true, folks. Antiochus III had already done that almost a quarter of a millennium before Paul even writes this letter to the Colossian brethren, folks. By the way, Laodicea, the same Laodicea of Revelation, is only just several miles up the road from Colossae. So you're going to see even in the book of Colossians, Paul's going to even reference the brethren that are in Laodicea, also because they're so close in proximity, just to give you a little bit more flavor on what he's talking about in Colossians 2. Let's get back over here to Sheepdog. And Sheepdog, come on, buddy, let's get it together now.
So think about the words spoken in Colossians 2. They were not in the heart of Israel. Who would be judging them for not keeping the dietary laws?
That a lot of thousands of people, Jews, were able to, if that was the case. I'm still not hanging my hat on that, but what I'm saying is, no, there were plenty of Jews that were already criticizing them for not keeping the Sabbath correctly. Remember, these are a shadow of things to come. Yahshua Messiah, who kept the Sabbath but didn't keep the Sabbath the way the Jews wanted him to keep, because Exodus 6, this is what Matthew 12 is all about. Matthew 12 stands in the way, and this is what Messianics do. They love to quickly say the world doesn't do this, the world doesn't do that. Well, folks, the Messianics are in violation of exactly what Paul's warning about. You're desiring to be teachers of the law. This is what 1 Timothy's talking about. 1 Timothy 1 is we're going to shut you down. Right now, all I'm hearing, I say this humbly, from Sheepdog, 1 Timothy 1 is going to establish, if you will, the context, if that's what you're going to go, of which makes no sense. 1 Timothy 1. 1 Timothy 1 is going to explain clear as day. 1 Timothy 1:5. But the end of the charge is love out of a pure heart and a good conscience and faith unfringed, from which things some, having swerved, have turned aside to vain talking. Like the comment about this Jewish presence in there, that's vain talking. Desiring to be teachers of the law, which is what they're trying to do. Desiring to be teachers of the law. You're not keeping kosher, you're not keeping the Sabbath, you're not keeping the Levitical feast days, though they understand neither what they say. Yes, there was a significant Jewish presence there. Antiochus III established that. Josephus is writing about it. But we know that the law is good. Backing up, though they understand neither what they say nor what they confidently affirm. But we know that the law is good if a man uses it lawfully. The law was not given to the Gentiles, never was. Amos 3 establishes that clear as day. Acts 15 establishes that clear as day. Did you offer me sacrifice in the wilderness those 30 years, or those 40 years, O house of Israel? Apparently they did not. Well, who has given them all those commandments?
Or not keeping the festivals, or not keeping the new moons or Sabbaths. These people did not grow up doing any of these things. They didn't grow up with the dietary laws. They didn't grow up with new moons or Sabbaths or festivals.
True.
There would be nobody to judge them.
There were thousands of people to judge them. That's incorrect. What he's saying right there is flat out false doctrine. It's a lie. Historically inaccurate.
When taught in context, it's the exact
contextualization and contextualism is a philosophy of men, and the context of Colossians 2 in verse 8 We took it from the ESV, from the KJV, even the NIV. How many more witnesses do we need here? Establishes that it is a philosophy of men. And right off the bat, you're doing exactly what Paul said not to do.
Opposite. These people were coming out of pagan religions,
yes,
starting to keep the Sabbath, starting to keep the dietary laws, starting to keep the feast days.
And that's why Paul is wondering why it wasn't given to you. You stick to the Messiah. What does Paul say in Colossians 2? What does Paul say in Colossians 2? This when he's going to go out, take heed, in verse 8, take heed lest there shall be anyone that makes spoil of you through his philosophy and vain deceit, after the traditions of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after the Messiah. For in him dwells all the fullness and the majesty on high bodily. And in him you are made full, who is the head of all principality and power, in whom you were also circumcised, which way that is law of Moses, with a circumcision not made with hands, and a putting off of the body of the flesh in the circumcision of the Messiah. Your context is in Acts 15. Your context is in Acts 15. These men from Judea, from James, that go to Antioch, that did have a Jewish presence, but nonetheless, this is why Titus was not compelled. I already done videos on that. And flat out, Paul shuts that down until they have to go have the Jerusalem council to figure that one out. For in him dwells, verse 10, and in him you are made full, who is the head of all principality and power, in whom you were also circumcised with a circumcision not made with hands, in the putting off of the body of the flesh in the circumcision of the Messiah, having been buried with him in baptism, in which you are also raised with him through faith in the working of Yahweh, who raised him from the dead. And you being dead through your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, you, I say, did he make alive together with him, having forgiven us all our trespasses, having blotted out the bond written in ordinances that was against us, with which was contrary to us, and he has taken it out of the way, nailing it to the torture stake. Having despoiled the principalities and the powers, he made a show of them, openly triumphing over them in it. Let no man judge you. By the way, that word judge is the same word that Yahshua the Messiah uses in Matthew 7. You can look it up in the Strong's. You therefore in meat or drink, or in respect of feast day or new moon or Sabbath, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body of the Messiah. Let no man rob you of the prize by a voluntary humility and worshiping of the angels, dwelling in the things which he has seen, like Peter did, going over in, I'll bring that up in a moment, folks, in Acts 11, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind, and not holding fast the head, from which all the body being supplied, feed my sheep. All authority has been given to me, but some doubt it. Go! 10 years. It's a big planet out there. It's 197 million square miles. There's no planes, trains, and automobiles. By that measure that you chose to judge sheepdogs, then that is the measure that we are applying. Stick to the Messiah, not vain philosophy. No. And not holding fast the head. Yes, the head, from whom all the body being supplied and knit together through the joints and bands, increase with the increase of Yahweh. If you died with the Messiah from the rudiments of the world, why, as living in the world, do you subject yourself to what ordinances? He's talking about the Torah. Handle not, nor taste, nor touch, all which things are to perish with the using, after the precepts and doctrines of men, which things have indeed a show of wisdom and worship and humility and severity to the body, but are not of any value against the indulgence of the flesh. You could even back up in verse 6, Colossians 2:6. As you therefore receive the Messiah, Yahshua the Master, so walk in him. Did you receive him by hearing the Torah? No, they did not. Even you said so yourself. There was no Jewish presence over there, so how could they have received Yahshua the Messiah then? Even though there was a Jewish presence there, but they received the Master by way of the Holy Spirit. Rooted and built up in him, and establishing your faith, even as you were taught, abounding in thanksgiving, not the Torah. Amos 3 is going to establish that clearly Yeah, there's a reason why Stephen the Martyr is taking a knee in front of an angry Apostle Saul at that moment.
And they were being judged for doing that. Just like when Sabbath keepers start keeping the dietary laws and start keeping the feast days of God and the Sabbaths, they were coming out of the world. They were coming out of that pagan religion, that pagan way of living,
yes,
in favor of living a life for God, and they were being judged for it.
They were being judged by who? In other words, if they were being judged, and a lot of Messianics love to throw this. There's a lot of you Messianics out there. Some of you, I'm being very kind. I'll tell you right now. You're throwing this argument out there that it's family members, okay? That it's friends, families, neighbors. No, it's not. No, it's not. Think about it. When you go over to Matthew 5, you go over to Matthew 5, and Matthew 5, right before Matthew 5:17, ironically, Yahshua the Messiah is going to say flat out, "Blessed are you when men shall shall revile you, and say all manner of things falsely against you for my name's sake. Rejoice." Don't be upset. Don't get mad. Don't feel like, don't let that bring you down. Don't let them judge you. Okay, ask and it shall be given you. Seek it. Here you go. Matthew chapter 5. The Master's words are much more appropriate than mine. Matthew 5 verse 10. Matthew 5:10. Blessed are they that have been persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men shall reproach you and persecute you and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice. Now you're saying that Paul's saying, no, you can't judge me. You cannot revile me. You cannot do it. No. In other words, listen to your argument. Are you saying that Paul expects to go put tape over your mouth? If anybody's judging you in a family, go put tape over their mouth. Think about that. That is not what Paul's saying. That is not what Paul's saying. I've come out of a Messianic organization that is quick to judge you because they see you riding your bike on the Sabbath, because they see that, are you warming something up in the stove? Like one person, supposed to be friends of ours, but, he left 5 minutes before the sunset. Things like that. Was a senior missionary. People like that. Don't let any of them judge you. Don't put them over you to start judging you according to meat, drink, Sabbath, food days, something that the Messianic organization I was in, and this is was later exposed in 2000 and 2001. By the way, I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim. 51 years old now, but my life meant something. Yes, that's exactly. My life bears witness to this. That is the proper context, if you want to, if that's, remember, by the sword that you brought to this argument. You're wrong. You are wrong. That's exactly what Paul meant. We speak wisdom in a mystery. Things that I heard not, things that I saw not, things that ear heard not, neither entered in the heart of man. Contextualization requires you to hear and see. So then how can we speak wisdom in a mystery then? This is where the Messianics rob you of what is yours. What is Paul saying? Let no man rob you. Let no man rob you. So then if we can't let our family members judge us, then how can we be blessed if they persecute us? Because your context is wrong, Messianics. Repent. Your history is wrong. Repent. Yes, Yahweh chooses the foolish things of this world. Does this poster disturb you? Because it's the weak things of this world, the despised things of this world, to shut down those that think they know everything. You're wrong. Proverbs 9, you're welcome. I love you too. Why is that so difficult? What is Yahshua the Messiah saying? Judge not, lest you be judged. For by that same measure you choose to judge, that measure will be judged to you. It's so simple. What am I missing here? Why are we so angry? Sheepdog, this is going to go out on YouTube. Again, I'm not going to, I don't know exactly what happened. I'm not going to accuse you of deleting my communication with you, but I did respond to your, we were both corresponding, as you probably see. It's right there, right below your Facebook. Your YouTube. Here was a communication we were having. The last one, I was asking a question. In fact, I'm not clear as to exactly. This was what you were asking. I'm not clear exactly what you were asking. Now, I did get a screenshot of it. It was showed that it was delivered. I'm not sure what exactly happened, because on your YouTube it's not there. I was asking if Yahshua the Messiah said, "Blessed are you when men shall revile you and speak all manner of falsehood for you for my sake. Rejoice and be glad, for so they persecuted the prophets before you." But you say that Paul is not referring to others that are Torah keepers, like those who judged Peter in Acts 11, or those who went to Antioch from Jacob in Acts 15, and said, "Judged according to the circumstances." In other words, the context is in Acts 11 and 15. These were Torah keepers judging people that were newbies coming into the faith. Circumcision, which is also from the law, but because of context, it is pagan family members, friends, or neighbors. And he's not the only Messianic. Some of you rabbis out there, I'm calling you out. I'm calling you out. Lower that wall of pride. Lower it. Yahweh will choose the foolish and the weak things. Galatians 6:6 is in play here. Okay, I'm just saying, I am not a rabbi, an elder, or teacher. I'm not, but Galatians 6:6 is in play. I was drilled by some of the best. I'm not that ignorant. However, contextualization is a philosophy of men, which we find upon searching the meaning of context, which is true, which is what Paul, in other words, you feel free, but for some reason, I'm not sure quite what happened. Sheepdog, it was mysteriously not received or deleted. That was a pretty tough blow for me to take, because it reminded me of what's happened in my past with Messianics before. My beloved Messianics, they just can't handle the truth. They don't like the fact that, no, Tony, you cannot correct us, we correct you. And that is a stumbling block for me. It is, I have to admit, but I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, buddy. I don't know if you deleted it or if something just mysteriously, supernaturally happened, but anyways, we'll leave it at that. Folks, Sheepdog, I love y'all. Yahweh bless you. Pray for the peace in Jerusalem. Honestly, folks, there's a lot going on over there in Israel. We take these things for granted. People are under attack. And not just the Israelis, folks. I'm talking about even Muslims, folks. Even Muslims. I mean that in my heart. But Yahweh's people, I'm not afraid to say this, folks. Yahweh, this is what Ezekiel's talking about, what Jeremiah's talking about, what Isaiah's talking about. Yahweh's whole point is to let the world know that they'll know I am Yahweh. Not Allah, not God, not Jehovah. Yahweh of hosts. And the world needs to wake up and acknowledge it is Yahweh of hosts. Acknowledge it. That's the whole point of these things, these signs. Love you, folks. Yahweh bless you. We're going to do another video again real soon. Colossians 2:16. Please accept the correction. Please do something about this. My beloved Messianics, I love you guys. We'll talk again real soon. Yahweh bless you, folks.